But in a situation where you find that if you look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's take a look at the dailies today, and we have joining us Ben Shemang from The Voice of Nigeria to review today's paper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Zena.
Okay. Now let's start with our lead newspaper, which is the Daily Trust newspaper. We have Electoral Bill, Senate Reps Committee to meet this week for harmonization. We also have, this is not the time to break up Nigeria, that's according to Oshibajo. And on page 20, we have 2 years after federal government loses 24 billion to land border closure in Ogun. And the big headline right there says, Benue, Borno IDPs sacked by insecurity, fleeced by aid workers. And the rider is saying how sharp practices worsen matters. Another rider is saying female IDPs survive through prostitution in Borno. Officials deny neglect charge. We've built 10,000 houses for them. That's according to the federal government. And the documentary is going to be showing on Trust TV, channel 164, start time and free to air. We also have Pandora, how Bishop Oyedepo set up company for wife, kids in tax haven. And we also have on page 36, despite release claim, Niger monarch still missing 1 month after. And on page 22, you'd find 2022, federal government votes 650 million for Mambila Power Project, 1.6 billion for Villa cars. These are some of the stories you find on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, with that, we move on to Punch newspaper, and we have this headline here that reads, federal government to spend 44.64 billion naira on military equipment, arms, ammunition. We also have SAN writes Malami threatens suit over Nigeria's $62 billion with oil firms. We have the major headline here. That's a big headline. And it says, why federal government can't remove fuel subsidy now? NNPC marketers, experts. And the writer here says, it'll be disastrous to remove subsidy without refineries working, says Ipman. Another writer here states, subsidy now political matter, as Nigerians shouldering it, says ex-LCCI DG. And the final writer from that particular headline is no provision in 2022 budget, but petrol subsidy continues, declares NNPC. We also have other headlines. This one here says students merciless beating. Kwara orders Arabic school head suspension, raises panel. Another one here, NDLEA raids Lagos Oyo drug joints, others arrest 110 dealers. And a final headline, man arrested for allegedly defiling 13-year-old neighbor's daughter as wife goes for vigil. And these are the headlines from the Punch newspaper.
Okay, let's move on to the Nation newspaper this morning. You see on page 5, IU's entry reshapes PDP's chairs race. We also have terrorists colluding with bandits, says federal government. You also find on page 6, MTN suspects sabotage in network outage. 300,000 youth to get film production training. And the headline on The Nation this morning says CBN to banks. Review loans to oil and gas, agric, other sectors. And you also find Tinubu, I'm happy to be back home. And the writer is saying ex-governor reunites with associates. And right below the pictorial there where you see Tinubu and some of his associates, Buhari celebrates Tanzanian Nobel Literature Prize winner Ghana. These are some of the headlines on the Nation newspaper.
All right, with that, we'll move on and take this day newspaper. We have a headline here that states, Tinubu says, only God can take my life. And the writer here says, Gbajabiamila, Sanwo-Olu, Olamilekan say work has started for task ahead. We also have this major headline here that states, Oshibajo saying, Buhari is Nigeria's most popular, only credible leader ever. And the writer here says, insists Nigeria better off united, optimistic nation will overcome challenges. And I think these are all the headlines we have on the front page of this day newspaper.
Okay, so let's discuss some of the headlines on the papers this morning, starting with the one right here on the Daily Trust newspaper, which says, Benue Borno IDPs sacked by insecurity, fleeced by aid workers. We have seen, so many situations in IDP camps where, they are feeding from hand to mouth. And some of these, according to the reports here, says some of these female IDPs survive through prostitution. What is your assertion about this whole situation?
Honestly, this is at best what we would describe as tragedy of the ruled. Those days when kings, queens would die, say it's a tragedy. But today you are seeing the masses the receiving end. Imagine people indeed have been sent out of their natural abode. No means of survival. Come rain, come shine, they all are there. And there were even times you see Dangote sending quite a lot of aid in terms of either semovita, rice. But some of these things will be found in the markets. Something really is wrong with us in terms of this humanity in us. Man's inhumanity has become a thing that, no sanctity of life as it is. But we think that we should also try to ensure that and aid government to help these people. Oh. And what do I mean? If you check, there were times the governor of Borno State, Zulum, would visit these camps around 2 a.m. only to find out that only a few people are in camp, a few IDPs are in camp. But in the daytime, they all will rush back and begin to receive some handouts here and there. It's really not the best of the times. IDPs are cheating on the side of government. Some non-governmental agencies are also cheating. They are surviving based on the bad situations the IDPs are facing. This is what the white man or the proverb would call fishing in troubled waters. That it is only when some people are in the disadvantaged position that you begin to smile to the bank. Right. It's abnormal.
Okay. Now, talking about government intervention, they are saying they've built 10,000 houses for them.
Yes, absolutely. I have visited Maiduguri not once, not twice, and I've seen what the governor is doing, the current one, and even past ones. But sometimes I really wonder, some people find it hard moving to what you call secured environment, moving to what you call decent environment, decent houses, and it's just like some states too. You see mass housing here and there. Go to Kano, go to Katsina, but you realize that people still want to stay in urban slums when indeed there are, nice estates being built. We should begin to think and change our conduct and behavior at the point in time.
Okay. So could you comment of the government's move to repatriate these people back into community?
Absolutely. I support government. Yes, they should repatriate them to where they belong, but on condition that there is security there. You can't push them there. You don't see civil defense corps there. You don't see the police there. You don't see the court system there. You don't see the local governments functioning. And it's when you see them there, you begin to have courage that if these government agencies can move there, they also can go in. So first of all, let there be security. Next, you have the facilities, and of course, let there be normal life. And I tell you, let the markets boom. farming there. Let there be assurance, and I think I'll support government with that.
Okay, before we move to the next paper, a lot of people have seen situations where you find a form of abuse within these IDP camps. Some of the relief materials that are being brought into those camps, sometimes are being taken away from these people by some of the officials staying within that camp. What should the government do, to checkmate all of these activities within the camps?
Yes, there are always laws. Punitive measures will have to be there. And when you are bringing in relief materials, please label them. If this is coming from Zainab or Husseina, label them so that people will know this is where they're coming from. When you just take some things without being identified, you just find them in the market. And of course, let people be punished. If you don't punish people, of course, this will continue. And Zainab, I want to tell you of experience. There were times that you could see some people receive relief materials. It's expected that it should last some 2, 3, 4 days before you return. But the following day, they return again. The third day, they return every day. And by the time those distributing simply say, Baba, look, you were here yesterday. The other day you were here. They just say, it doesn't concern you. It is our situation, not theirs. So if we begin to see living in refugee camps, or IDP camps rather, as a means of livelihood, I think we are missing the point. Schools are not open. Hospitals are not there. Everything, we shouldn't just be living from hand to mouth, begging to survive. And you can see why some ladies are going into prostitution to earn a living. It's not supposed to be so. It's abnormal.
Okay, let's move on to the major headline on Punch newspaper, and it's about the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, yesterday around town, there was a lot of panic buying, and fueling stations, a filling station, Ipman and LCCI saying they will be going on strike despite the federal government, warning them not to. And then the ex-LCCI DG has actually said that subsidy is now a political matter. What is your take on this?
Yeah, honestly, when government does not want to offend the electorate, we'll talk of this subsidy. We have to do it because it's a requirement. Yes, government has to kind of support people to live. But I think we'll be better off if there is a turnaround maintenance, what they call TAM of all the refineries. Are they operating at optimal level? You have the petrochemical, Kaduna, you go to Port Harcourt, Warri, 2 in Rivers State. They all are not working optimally. And it's sad if it is confirmed that at the point where Nigeria begins to do what they call trade by barter, you take the crude oil, bring us the refined one, and you can imagine the value chain. In crude oil, what do you have? The grease, you have even insecticide, you have quite a lot of other derivatives from crude oil. So if you just take this and you dash somebody and it gives you refined one, of course, that tells you you are not doing the correct thing. But happier thing, if it is true, the government says throughout the establishment of NNPC, it's only this year that they've made profit. So in making profit, what happened? How did it happen? When indeed we're talking of the refineries not working very well. So it also shows that if the refineries were to work at optimal level, the employment generation will be there, the tankers will be there, to avoid this kind of panic buying, where people will also be storing petrol in houses and thereby igniting fire and causing mayhem here and there.
Okay, now the NNPC is saying there is no provision for petrol subsidy in the 2022 budget. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, since NNPC is saying so, we cannot say no. And if you look at the books at the National Assembly in terms of appropriation, where is it? So that means that we are in a period where every Nigerian will have to tighten their belt because the flight will certainly take off. And when it takes off, of course, what we hope is not going to be a turbulent kind of sky. So we should, when government is talking like this, it follows that, of course, prices of these commodities will have to be increased. And in doing so, I think there's supposed to be enlightenment. Where is NOA, National Orientation Agency, then the Ministry of Information, Public Enlightenment Department? They all have to start conscientizing Nigerians, educating them, persuading them to ensure that, yes, this is what is needed, because the government actually needs money to take care of the infrastructure, as President Buhari said in this budget. So, in terms of the media, it's the media too has what the agenda setting of in terms of role making. You set the agenda for government, educate the electorate. This is the thinking of government. If there are, however, dissenting voices, of course, if there are superior arguments, of course, the weaker one will bow, so that Nigeria moves forward. Just like Vice President Osubanjo is saying that this is not the time for Nigeria to break up. If I were him, I'll put it this way: Nigeria should not even break up. If we are saying this is not the time, it also means a time is coming that Nigeria will break. So I think that the correct thing should have been, this is not time. There's no time that Nigeria should break, because there's more in us gaining when we are together, because it takes the most easy time to destroy, but takes a longer time to build.
Okay, talking about budget, some experts have said, well, we could sell some of Nigeria's refineries and then some of our Euro bonds to fund the 2022 budget. Do you think this is a brave move to make?
Honestly, when it comes to commercialization or privatization, halfway or complete, we've seen it in some agencies where, take the case of NEPA, it was unbundled. And you created GenCos, generating companies. You created Discos, distributing companies. Then transmission companies. But today, Zainab and Hussein, you realize that you pay more when it comes to, you've sold a company. And the company, you have people who are generating this electricity. But in terms of distribution, commercializing, there's a lacuna, there's a gap there. So it's easy for them to just fall under the innocent consumers and just say, look, the law says we should increase every so months, increase the tariffs. So if we say we want to privatize or even sell out the refineries, who indeed are the buyers? And when we say we are selling them, look at the Ajaokuta company, for example. For how long? When Russia was Russia, the entire Russia, Ajaokuta came on board. People were saying, we'll make our cars, we'll make every iron rod. Today, at the point they sold it to some Indians, who indeed were taking some of the equipment away because they had bought the company. Not until it was stopped. So the solution is really not, let's sell NNPC, the refineries. If we sell the refineries the way they are we sure the equipment to be used in this refining aspect, are they of modern technology? Or the buying company will say, look, in view of the fact that we have to change quite a lot of equipment, therefore cost of production is high, therefore we transfer that to the consumer. And so a lot of working will have to be done. And we are seeing that NNPC is already trying to key into Dangote refinery by buying some shares there. When you think of that option, you already have 4 refineries. Let them work. And that's why, we have managers there. We cannot be talking of just people getting promoted in companies that are not functioning. We should be able to export refined oil to West Africa, to Africa in general. If you look at the level at which people take this oil illegally to West African countries, that tells you there are demands somewhere. But where are the scientists in us? When we're talking of the recruitment pattern, do we just recruit those who are in administration, those who are into marketing, those who are in just community service? What about refining? What about the engineers? we should look at those aspects so that we pay attention to that aspect more rather than administration. You look at the staff overhang, how equitable are they? In terms of equal ratio, who is more? Is it the engineers who refine? So these are things that should be looked at and make the refineries work, not trying to sell some things that are not too well. They are not functioning so well.
Okay, so now the masses seem to be at the receiving end of certain government policies. Now, when it comes to this, right now, the masses are actually apprehensive at the fact that, they think that petrol would actually increase. What can the government actually do to, ensure that the masses, are...
Yes, you see, Hosseina, honestly, the best thing is to just make these refineries work. Because you cannot be increasing pump prices at all times and the masses will be happy over it. Because the moment that is increased, there's always the boomeranging effect. Some galloping inflation, as the economists will say. Cost of transportation will increase. If a woman goes to buy maize, gari, in Edo or Meduguri and brings to Abuja, at what price? Therefore, the buyer along the way will be the one to suffer. And so, if we have more of the commodity on ground, of course, inflation will be checked. Therefore, we also expect in terms of gross domestic product, we should see more of the economic activities in Nigeria. The markets are booming. Now they are being closed at a point. We're talking of the manufacturing, where indeed Nigerian manufacturers are crying out. There is no enough electricity. So if we have that, the manufacturing aspect will be booming, and you see that people are being employed. We are talking of farming. We are indeed, look at Benue, that prizes itself or tax itself as the food basket of the nation. Today, you see those places have been abandoned. If you go to Zaki Biam, Ukum area, you see what they call yam heaps, almost like a story building, trying to make a statement. We are the yam producers of this nation. So if indeed the fight around those areas are stopped, you see that we can export this yam that West African countries and even Nigerians in the diaspora, the Africans, are looking for here and there. So if government actually takes care of many of these things, of course, it's going to be nice. Talking of even hospitals, primary health care, for example, we've been having rollback malaria. We had malaria summit here and there. And what is happening? When we can use the NIM3 Dogonyaro to take care of, you fight desertification with it, and if we can get medicine from it to take care of malaria, why not? If the quinine content is in those things, and they are even saying that corona could be taken care of from that aspect, I think that it is a thing that the Nigerian government should support. They came out with the shelter belt to take care of Dogonyaro every year from Sokoto up to Meduguri, that sea angle kind of. But we are seeing a lull. It's nose diving. You don't see the activities. So these are places people could be employed. The youth will gainfully employed. I remember Bob Marley says, a hungry man is an angry man. And any hand that is waiting to be used could be used gainfully. And the youths, I tell you, if you create these opportunities, they will do wonders for Nigeria. Right. They constitute the population.
Right. Now, another eye-pinning headline is the one on the Nation newspaper, which says, CBN to banks, review loans to oil and gas, agri, and other sectors. And they are saying this due to the fact that the financial market is undergoing a litmus test. What are your assertions about this?
In aviation circle, there is what you call headwind. If you are going this way and the wind is coming opposite you, it slows your movement. The Nigerian economy is facing the headwind. The wind is blowing against it. And when banks begin to pay attention more to big companies in terms of loans, I think they are missing it. And when you see individuals, check EFCC records and you see how much individuals owe banks, it is a serious matter. When indeed we should be looking at the loans to be given to farmers. We're talking of Lekki rice, for example, Lagos KB. If they can produce rice and we are seeing the big heaps of rice here and there, I think that it is a good thing. But in terms of loan, we should not be talking of collaterals for farmers, for God's sake. If a farmer owns this, if a district head can verify, can testify, can certify that this land belongs to this man and he wants to use it to farm, let him farm, you buy the commodity. And I saw that those days during Ahmed Makarfi days, when there were crises in Kaduna State, what did he do? He created farms and engaged the youth, formed some communities. 20, 25, 30 of you, they give you pieces of land and the farm their government will go and buy and they made those youths to be engaged and they had money and crisis went down there. So in terms of these loans, we should not make the conditions so stiff. Bring collaterals, your land is not registered. Most of lands in Nigeria are not registered. These are lands without titles. But when you're talking of titled lands, it's then you can get, loans. We are missing the point. If you go Abuja Kaduna Highway, Lokoja Abuja Highway, Kefi Highway, you begin to see how many people are just rushing to grab this land. They grab the land, they are not using them, they are not farming. And that is where we'll also be talking of modern day in terms of rearing cows, fish farming. We're talking of dry season farming. If all the while the rains will come and sweep the farms during the rainy season, why don't we have the dams, why don't we imbibe dry season farming, for God's sake, so that before the rain comes, we've harvested and everybody moves to highland. And we should be able to capture our environment. I tell you quickly, I remember there was a time I was shaking seriously. There was heavy cold in Bonn, Germany. I just said, oh, the weather is bad today. They all chorused and replied me, there's always never a bad weather. There's always bad dressing. Right. I should have monitored the environment to dress very well. So Nigerian government should also key into this.
Now, agriculture, the agricultural sector is a very, very important sector. Don't you think a review of some of the strategies to farmers is going to affect human capital development?
Yeah, you see, when you review, of course, when they say a law is injurious, you change it. You make it people friendly. So when you review, you will not review to make it punitive. You will review to make it so hard. You will review to make it stringent that that the farmers cannot just make it. Rather, you make it people friendly. You have cottage industries here and there. If there are states that can actually take care of some commodities, I mean, you should be able to pay attention. If Plateau will give us the Irish potato we can think of in Nigeria, pay attention to that. Pay attention to farmers who indeed are doing those farming. If in Kaduna State we can go into ginger farming and that's the place we can have it, why not? We have cocoa in the southwest. Why not pay attention to all of these things? You now go to the Niger Delta areas, palm oil, they all are there. We should not be deceived by this oil thing. Oil is like a well, you go get a container, you fetch, okay, it's not going down. But we have seen that oils are drying in some of our villages. So it goes that whatever is a deposit over there in liquid form, at the point it disappears. So it's for us But look, let's take research seriously. What are research agencies doing in terms of this? And when they bring findings, government should also take that seriously. Apart from that, who indeed are the investors? We should be able not just to feed our country, feed the nation. We should export food, for God's sake. Today they are saying open the borders so that food prices will go down. If therefore we are simply going to begin to bring rice again to Thailand and some other Vietnam and US, these are people who indeed have stored rice for 5 years, 10 years. They didn't see famine in their areas, no hunger around. They don't cast their vision far and wide. It's not, therefore they push it to us and we just go buy and shop rice. You cross leg and say this is imported rice, when indeed you can buy rice that is farmed this year, you harvest this year, you eat it this year. It's sweeter, it's the best. It's like getting your vegetable from farm, you wash, and it's in the pot, of course, go to the kitchen within a day. You get the best nutrients. But when we begin to say imported, honestly, we should begin to start looking inwards. We should be able to start providing for us what we should want.
Okay, now one final question. Now the federal government seems to focus more on the oil and gas and agri sector. Are there other sectors that you think they can invest in?
Honestly, security is still key. Because you can invest in oil and gas, you can invest in agriculture, but you see, security is key. Education is key. If Boko Haram is saying modern education is sacrilege, it's forbidden, and we are busy closing down schools, it's like we are playing to their wishes. We should say no. So we expect that security, if Southwest will come up with Ametokum, and it appears to be working, the entire states. Up north, we are still saying no to some of these things. But I can see that Katsina is taking a lead. I can see that Kano is also following in terms of ensuring that there is security. If we therefore begin to use what we call the agro-ranchers of the Civil Defense Corps, and of course, let people of sound character, sound minds, stakeholders begin to have summits. These farmers' herders cannot continue forever. We cannot. What went wrong 20 years before now? Did we have all of this? People who wanted to relax will also say, let's go to the plateau. The jewel of the savannah, you go to Adamawa State. Home of peace. You go to Kaduna, center of learning. You begin to witness quite a lot of tourism. But there has to be peace. Let there be peace. And at this point, I think that the Police Service Commission and the IG that always go to court challenging one another for the same regime, for the same job, I think it does not augur well. They should support the president of Nigeria. And I can see, we had a chat with the Minister of Information just on Friday. Zainab, if you check some of these bus stops, the rate at which people are selling swords, long swords, daggers, machetes, bow and arrow, they are in bus stops. Something is happening. There has to be a mop-up of what you call not just these small arms, the unregular ones. We're talking of even then guns. These things are found in the streets. You find youths with sharp knives. You see them well dressed, but what is by their sides? You have sharp knives. Right. So these are things that should be checked, because if there's a fight somewhere, of course, everyone to himself. We don't want a state of anarchy in Nigeria. Right. And that's why we are saying together it should be. The Nigerian spirit remains one, right. A united nation.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Ben Shemang from Voice of Nigeria. We hope to have you next time on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you.